Harold H.B. Bell, live at Autism Parent Care. We are bringing you another episode of The Spectrum. In the last episode, Dr. Yip and I were discussing love, unconditional love, and some of the things that parents might want to understand about helping their children instead of loving their children back into a state of, they're reversing the behavior instead of improving the behavior. Now, Dr. Yip, we were talking about love and how important it is for the parents to love their children, but also how important it is for them to trust the therapy that Autism Parent Care and the therapists are executing. If you wanted to give some examples, let's just start from high functioning levels, then we'll take it to an area where we've got some kids who can get some things, can't get the other, and then we've got some that you would think are totally primitive in their nature, but all of them receiving this therapy will benefit if we execute and show the love that you're talking about. So let's start with a high functioning individual where the parents might get confused the fact that my child still has a problem, even though he can communicate, even though he can write, he can add, she can do this, she can do that, but there's still this inherited problem.
Yes. So with a high functioning kid, you cannot tell the difference. They can get really good grades, they seem to be sociable, they get on with their friends. You don't think there's any problem until you get challenges, until there are things they don't want to do, or when they insist on their way. So here's what autism is. Because of the way the brain is organized, being flexible is really hard. Seeing another person's point of view, I am always right. It's always about me. And when it's always about me, and it's cute when you are 3 years old, 5 years old, maybe pushing it at 7. What happens when they are 15? When it's always about me, they come across very self-centered. And if parents allow them that way and say, well, he or she has autism, we're not going to, we just give them the benefit of the doubt. Guess what happens? The siblings will not have grounds. The siblings will always have to keep giving in to this kid. And this kid then become the person who ruled the household. And what started off as mental inflexibility become truly a self-centered trait. So everything revolves around this kid. And guess what? If we still do not treat this problem, by the time they go into their 20s, they seem to think that they are entitled to the special treatment. And that is when the rubber meets the road, because by the time they are ready to face life in society, they are not ready. And they would get a biggest shock in their life when other people do not play their game.
And that is the reason I wanted to start with the high functioning individuals, and I was mentioning the blessing and the curse of it, because the blessing is you have a son or a daughter that you can communicate with, and they're comprehensive and understanding of certain things, but that curse I talk about is it's unrecognizable to society. And when they get into society, as you mentioned, nobody knows that. So it might be one word that triggers that person's symptom, basically. And that would take that child from being a perfectly normal, understanding individual to somebody who is so defiant and so rudely that now they're in danger. And the rest of the society is looking and saying, hey, we've got to do something. We've got to arrest this person. We've got to bar this person from coming into this class.
We fire them.
Oh, we fire them. So now we're faced with these problems of these everyday, normal-looking people. And I guess if I could explain anything about just working around autism, there is not one case like the other. And if you're not familiar with some of the symptoms and some of the behaviors of people on the spectrum, you just wouldn't know. You wouldn't have a clue. And that is the reason I think when we have school systems that are putting children in special need education and haven't been diagnosed, that is the reason we have people in the workplace and they just go off at work and we don't know, because so many people are undiagnosed. And those high functioning people are the main ones, I think, who suffer more trouble than the next area we're going to go to, because we have children that you can look at and tell, you can give them educational material and they can comprehend it, but they can't control their motor actions. They have twitches and twerks that as soon as you look at them, you know something's wrong. But you can feed them information, they can get better. Let's talk about that dynamic.
Okay, depending on the family, the thing is, if it is quite clear that they have a so-called a disability, right, then you can overcompensate for them. So they might look clumsy and they look like they are not capable of doing basic tasks, right? So just you name it, any basic task, open the door even, you know? So, and then grandparents, parents are, very much, and I'm not criticizing when I say that. It's
Right.
very understandable and really normal, right? You want to help them, you want to do things for them. But underneath it all, they're still a person. Hey, you guys are doing it for me, so I'm just going to play dumb. Why should I make the effort? When somebody opens the door for me, shower me, feed me, do all these things for me and entertain me, well, that's really a good life.
Who wouldn't take that? I mean, who wouldn't accept that? We had a conversation earlier. Who wouldn't accept somebody giving you a bath and rubbing oils all over you? I mean,
But that's how kings and queens are.
if you can get away with it, you would do it.
And if somebody dressed me, isn't that what king and queens did in the past?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have to learn to dress myself. Why not?
Why should I? If I don't have to learn it.
And this then maintains their disability. The mid-functioning group parents, I want to tell you, it may be news to you, they are more capable than you think. They are the one who play helpless. And in fact, I have treated a few of them who had parents push them just a tiny bit. They would have been amazing. They would have been functional in a way of being able to speak better, being able to go to school. It's just that the parents didn't imagine that they could. That's because their expectations is too low.
Now, what about the guilt? And let's move on to the extreme measures, because this is where a lot of the parents get caught up in the guilt when they have the children who are on the far end of the spectrum and they jump up and down and they get loud outbursts, or they might do something in public that is totally unacceptable from
self-injurious behavior.
hitting yourself in the head or whatever. But these children also have the capacity to learn, and a lot of times the parents think, oh, my poor baby, and that poor baby says, yeah, I got her too. And so a lot of the times the parents quit applying the procedures and the methods that we know will work because they're trying to overcompensate because of that child's behavior or
Right.
his place on the spectrum. So to
Well, unfortunately, at the lower end, the functioning where they're not able to speak, they're hitting their head, they injure themselves to an extent that you almost have to tie them down. It can't be that bad, or they are gouging out their eyeballs and things like that. So they enter the medical category, and do not see them as a medical case, please. Yes, they do have a medical issue, but hey, they are responsible for doing all their chores. I'm sorry, they are still responsible to be polite, and they have a compulsion. They are responsible for controlling their compulsion. When you require them to, you will be surprised how much they will step up to the plate. And this is personal experience. We have reduced self-injurious behavior that was like 500 times per 10 minutes or so, right? To zero, absolutely zero, because we require them. And parents did not think that it's possible. It never even entered their mind. And the enabling part comes when you keep telling them, don't do that. You keep feeding them, you keep entertaining them. No, and they're not doing that. Their life stops until they break that habit. It's a habit. It's a compulsion. Like anybody who has a compulsion, they can break it when they put their minds to it. Don't think that they cannot.
And I will attest to this. When I was new, first going into the therapy field, you have your mind fixated on what you know instead of giving your mind over to the doctor and saying, okay, try this. And I've watched children who were violent and aggressive by using the techniques that we use here at Autism Parent Care, reduce that totally. As you mentioned, we watch children who used to hit themselves in the head over 1,000 times a day, and we watch them now become functional and completely coherent now about what their surroundings are and what their behavior is supposed to be. So don't let it fool you, like you said, even if they're on the meds, don't let it fool you from discounting the therapy that we are giving here at Autism Parent Care, because it's most necessary. As we wind this down, Dr. Yip, if you could give me like 5 solid bullet points for the parents, not to stop loving your child, but understand those barriers where your love is really being a detriment versus helping your child along.
Okay, do not be afraid of their tantruming, because when you change a behavior, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Do not be afraid of them, right? And if they treat you disrespectfully, you don't have to be all nice and cuddly and loving. No. Give them some space and tell them it's not acceptable. You're going to do the same to anybody. Why should your child on the spectrum be any exception? Tell them that no, this is not acceptable. You have to correct that behavior. Point number 2. Point number 3, do not overhelp. It's not a help if you overhelp. It's too much. You can show them how to do that, back off, expect them to do that, to do what is due to them. Do not rob them of the opportunity for self-improvement.
Wow, I like that.
Point number 3. Point number 4, if you rob them of the opportunity for self-improvement, they stay a baby forever. We have 19-year-old thinking like a 2-year-old, a 19-year-old body acting as a 2-year-old, because that's the parents' expectation. And guess what, parents? You are not loving your child. You are keeping your child disabled. Rather than being loving, you're cruel to your child. And if I can, I will lock you up, parents. That's what that is, you know. And that's when the toxicity come about. And point number 5, I know when you have a child on the spectrum, you spend a lot of time with them. In fact, you don't have any other life besides you and the kid. You get into a codependent relationship. You don't really want your child to get better. Getting better, it's like having your kid leave the nest, empty nest syndrome, just like a neurotypical kid. And I tell you what, it is more loving and kinder to them when you can let them go, let them grow up, and let them leave you. Because just like a neurotypical child, there's no difference. They have to leave you. And let them do things that are different, and let them go off with a skilled person caregiver and cut the cord. And you are doing them a better service that way.
I think it's wonderful that we're addressing this to parents. I pray that you understand we're not telling you not to love your children. That is the main factor in any kind of relationship between human beings. But the love that you're giving sometimes is being contaminated with influences that are not going to let your child grow, as Dr. Gibb said, not going to allow your child a chance to become independent in this world. And if you trust this therapy that we're providing, the one-on-one therapy that we're providing in Autism Parent Care, you'll be able to see some monumental improvements. And then we need you to get on board and practice yourself some of these same skills that we're giving here at your home, and just watch the transformation that happens. So Dr. Yip, as always, I would love for you though, as we end the segment up, to tell them how important it is that you can get your child in here and let's do a brain map and get your child diagnosed, so we will know more about where to go to help with some of the therapy that you have. If you would just share that.
Yes, well, we do brain mapping, and that's another I think big segment here to look into the brain functioning. As we have said before, if you have a physical disability, it's pretty clear. You cannot walk, you cannot see, you cannot hear. If you have a mental disability, you need some kind of visual. So the brain mapping is to give you a visual, give you a statistics, to tell you how far away from the mean or from the norm each area of the brain is. This allows you to face the truth and face the reality. It is difficult, and I know if you need support for grieving, it is available for us. We do have pastoral counselors we can send them to you, and you need to do the grieving work, because if you don't do that, you're not doing them a service.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Yip, and we will be back with more of the Spectrum Internet, and we're going to make sure that you see this on YouTube, Facebook, and all the other social media outlets. So thank you again, the Spectrum Internet Radio Show and television on YouTube.
Yes.